and welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Shivangi Mishra. Let's begin with the headlines first. Afghan women bear the brunt of Taliban diktats. KVIC distributes 1200 bee boxes to farmers in Kashmir. And Nepal celebrates longest chariot Setu Machindranath. Let's begin the show. A popular private TV news channel in Kabul aired an all-female panel in its studio with an audience of women to mark International Women's Day. This was an incredibly rare broadcast as since the Taliban took over, many female journalists were forced out of the profession. We have a report.
Last year, the Taliban banned most girls and women from attending high schools, universities, and from working for any NGOs. According to the International Labour Organization, the growing restrictions imposed by the Taliban, coupled with the country's severe economic crisis, led to a 25% drop in female employment last year. More and more women are now turning to self-employment, such as tailoring at home.
ولی آیا خزه داسې نه ده خزه حق لري د اسلام له نگاه همدارنګه د قانون له نگاه نه همدارنګه په ټولنه کې دا د دې یو حق دی چې هغه باید وکولی شي کار وکړي کسب وکړي تعلیم وکړي.
International organizations, such as the UN Refugee Agency, along with local charities, are providing healthcare training to Afghan women in order to save lives of mothers and babies in remote parts of the country. 40 young women from villages in the Bamyan province are enrolled in the 2-year training program, which started in April of 2022 at a hospital in the provincial capital. Afghanistan has the highest maternal mortality rate in Asia. The United Nations estimates that an Afghan woman dies every 2 hours during pregnancy and childbirth. Rahimi, for example, who has 5 other children, was bleeding and was in intense pain as she slowly made her way to her in-laws' house. Her husband was unable to find a car to bring her to the hospital, much less an ambulance, and riding a donkey was out of question. Rahimi's baby died shortly after it was born, and before an ambulance finally arrived.
خانم خیلی بلنده یک ساعت راه می ده پیاده تا اون مزنج دیگه رای موتر نداشت تا خیلی ده آمادم قد شوار خو باز اینی من ده خانه خسور خمادم همینج که آمادم تا یه بیچارگو سو خیلی کت که موتر پیدا کنی آمبولانس زنگ ده دمیزیاگل زنگ زدم که چیه مو دیگه اینی تو مشکل داره که هم وقت تا سو چیگه دیگه طفل مزدیس رفت.
A UN report presented at the Human Rights Council in Geneva criticized the Taliban over their abhorrent treatment of women and girls. The UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Afghanistan, Richard Bennett, found that the Taliban's treatment of women and girls may amount to gender persecution, a crime against humanity.
The Taliban's intentional and calculated policy is to repudiate the human rights of women and girls and to erase them from public life. It may amount to the international crime of gender persecution, for which the authorities can be held accountable.
The United Nations has also warned that a Taliban administration crackdown on women's rights is likely to lead to a drop in aid and development funding in the country. The United Nations has made its single largest country aid appeal ever, asking for $4.6 billion in 2023 to deliver help in Afghanistan, where 2/3 of the population, some 28 million people, require it for survival. However, the Taliban's bans on women accessing their basic rights has severely hampered aid efforts. It seems that what progress had been made for Afghan women over the last decades has been virtually washed away. While the country suffers at the hands of the Taliban and their ineffective policies and governance, It is the Afghan women who continue to bear the biggest burden.
The Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir is said to be one of the most suitable beekeeping places in India, owing to its natural resources and favorable climate conditions. As the sector employs around 25 lakh citizens in the territory, authorities keep on taking different steps to promote the practice of beekeeping. Moving on the same lines, the Khadi and Village Commission recently distributed 1200 bee boxes to farmers in the Pulwama district of Jammu and Kashmir.
The nectar collected by the bees from the meadows, orchards, forests and gardens is considered among the finest across the globe. Jammu and Kashmir, being home to all of them, with its land requiring very less pesticides, creates a favorable atmosphere for producing organic honey. Considering the same Khadi Village Industries Commission or KVIC is providing bee boxes to farmers across Jammu and Kashmir to generate more employment opportunities. Recently, the KVIC distributed 1200 bee boxes to 120 farmers at an event in Pulwama district.
बेनिफिशियरी जो भी यहाँ काम करते हैं अपनी खेती बाड़ी का, उसमें हनी मिशन के तहत हनी वितरण का ये हमारा जो कार्यक्रम है बी बॉक्सेस वितरण का, उसके तहत उन लोगों को आय के स्रोत और उनके बढ़ जाएं, उस दिशा में हम लोग उनको ये वितरण का कार्यक्रम कर रहे हैं। हमें पूरी आशा और अपेक्षा है कि इससे उनकी आय बढ़ेगी। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी देश भर में युवाओं को रोजगार के साधन उपलब्ध करवाने के लिए अपनी नीतियों को लगातार आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं। उसी दिशा में केवीआईसी यहाँ के युवाओं को रोजगार के क्षेत्र में आत्मनिर्भर बना सके, इस दिशा में हम लोग हनी बी बॉक्सेस, पोल्ट्री वितरण, इस तरह के कार्यक्रम खादी संस्थाओं को लेकर सारे कार्यक्रम हमारे यहाँ लगातार चल रहे हैं और आगे भी चलेंगे।
The event was jointly organized by the Khadi and Village Industries Commission and the field station of CSIR, Indian Institute of Indian Medicine. Farmers from various districts like Ramban, Banihal, Shopian, Pulwama and Bargam received bee boxes, bee colonies and equipment. The Khadi and Village Industries Commission is taking significant steps towards achieving the dream of a self-reliant India as envisioned by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Beekeepers expressed their gratitude to KVIC for receiving these boxes, which will provide employment to them.
बहुत अच्छा एक इनिशिएटिव है। अनएम्प्लॉयड यूथ कश्मीर में बहुत ज़्यादा है। एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन के लिए बहुत एक अच्छा इनिशिएटिव है। तो ये आगे चल के यूथ को बहुत ज़्यादा मोटिवेट तो हो रहा है। यूथ अभी पिछले साल भी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की थी, इस बार भी की है। तो बहुत अच्छा इनिशिएटिव है जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की तरफ से उठाया जा रहा है। तो डेफिनेटली ऐसे ये जो एम्प्लॉयमेंट है, एम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट तो बढ़ेगा। प्रोग्राम किए जा रहे हैं, ट्रेनिंग भी दी जा रही है, ऊपर से मतलब बॉक्सेस भी फ्री दिए जा रहे हैं। तो डेफिनेटली इसे यूथ को भी बूस्ट मिलेगा और स्टार्ट करने के लिए एक बहुत अच्छा ट्रैक है।
Beekeeping is an effective way for providing employment to farmers, including landless farmers, to boost their income. By keeping beehives in crop fields during the flowering period, pollination efficiency is increased, which leads to improved yield. In addition to honey, beekeeping can also produce other valuable substances like beeswax, bee propolis and bee venom.
जो आज का ये प्रोग्राम हुआ खादी इंडिया और ट्रिपल CSR के तहत, इस प्रोग्राम से काफ़ी अवेयरनेस हुए हमारे फार्मर। जो फार्मर्स को फ्री ऑफ कास्ट डिस्ट्रीब्यूट हुआ ये हनी बीज के बॉक्सेस जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होते हैं, इससे जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ का जो नारा है, प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडिया का जो नारा है आत्मनिर्भर होने का, वो यही चीज़ें हैं। उससे काफ़ी बूस्ट मिलेगा ऐसे जैसे प्रोग्राम से। और सबसे बड़ी बात है जो आज उन्होंने बोला कि इस 1200 हनी बीज के अलावा हम 5000 बॉक्सेस और डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करेंगे, तो काफ़ी फ़ायदा होगा इससे हनी बीज का भी, और साथ में जो हमारा फ्रूट्स है उसमें भी काफ़ी फ़ायदा होता है इस चीज़ से। यहाँ के यूथ को काफ़ी फ़ायदा होने वाला है। और ख़ासकर हम लेवेंडर वाले जो बैच में बैठे हैं, इसका जो हनी आएगा ये दुनिया का सबसे महंगा हनी होता है, लेवेंडर हनी। तो अगर ये लोग इसी एरियाज़ में इसको रखेंगे, लेवेंडर हनी तैयार करेंगे, तो इनके रेट्स भी अच्छे मिलेंगे और क्वालिटी भी इसकी बहुत बढ़िया होती है और दुनिया में माना जाता है लेवेंडर हनी, और ये काफ़ी फ़ायदा होगा इससे।
Jammu and Kashmir is estimated to produce about 70 metric tons of honey annually of livelihood. The reason being, it does not need much investment apart from pollen and nectar from flowers, which is easily available in the territory.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
A large crowd gathered on the berth specially built to receive the Logos Hope ship in Basra's Shat al-Arab, impatient to discover the many titles on board the world's largest floating book fair. Adding new volumes to his collection was the objective of poet and bookseller Ala Nadeem when he boarded the Logos Hope the second day of its arrival. However, according to Nadeem, the collection was mostly in English with insufficient titles in Arabic. The ship used to offer many more volumes in Arabic, but the stock was depleted after the Djibouti and Jordan visit. The Logos Hope staff was now using the opportunity while docked in Iraq to replenish their stock, buying Iraqi literature and books in Arabic. According to Lapin, Iraq was initially not part of the ship's schedule. However, he said that after coordination with Iraqi authorities, the necessary measures were put in place to be able to welcome the ship after its visit to Djibouti. Terrorism in all its form and manifestations pose the most serious threat to humanity, said India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization NSA meeting in New Delhi on Wednesday. The SCO is a political and security union of countries spanning much of Eurasia and includes 8 countries: China, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Pakistan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. India acts as the current SCO chair. Doval's comments come at a time of increasing tensions between India's shared borders with neighboring and fellow SCO member China. The situation between India and China in the western Himalayan region of Ladakh is fragile and dangerous, with military forces deployed very close to each other in some parts. Indian Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar had said on March 18. At least 24 soldiers were killed when the two sides clashed in the region in mid-2020. But the situation has been calmed through rounds of diplomatic and military talks. Protesters took to the streets of Tel Aviv despite Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's pause on plans to overhaul the judiciary. Many of those protesting said plans announced earlier in the day to establish a separate National Guard had brought them out to protest. This new force would come under the authority of hardline National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. Now in his 6th term, Netanyahu straddles a religious nationalist coalition whose far-right members have stirred worry in the West for the future long-stalled peacemaking with the Palestinians and the ability to coordinate strategies on Iran. Opposition parties spanning the political spectrum have accused Netanyahu, who is on trial on corruption charges, of seeking to curb judicial independence. He denies any wrongdoing. Every other day, Sophia logs in from her Kabul home for an online English course run by one of a growing number of educational institutes trying to reach Afghanistan's girls and women who can't go to school and continue their education due to the Taliban administration's restrictions on women. Taliban officials, citing what they call problems, including issues related to Islamic dress, have closed girls' high schools, barred their access to universities, and stopped most women from working. Girls and women desperate to get an education have since flooded online schools like Sophia's online school Rumi Academy with applications. The school says it has seen its enrollment of mostly women rise from about 50 students to more than 500 after the Taliban took over in 2021. The school says they have had to turn away hundreds of more applicants. With 97% of the country living below the poverty line, not many can afford laptops, internet packages, and other necessities for online classes. The school can't expand much more either because they don't have the funds to put more teachers on the payroll and provide them with adequate online infrastructure to enable them to teach.
Pakistan is carrying out Digital Census 2023 in the illegally occupied territories of Gilgit-Baltistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The unlawful move is being opposed by all quarters of the society. Jamil Maqsood, a human rights activist, took the matter to the 52nd session of the UN Human Rights Council held in Geneva. He exposed Pakistan's illegal census exercise in the region that brazenly violates UN resolutions and Pakistan's own constitutional values. We have a report.
The wave of resistance against Pakistan's arbitrary decision of carrying out a digital census in the illegally occupied of Gilgit-Baltistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir is intensifying. So much so that Kashmiri activists based out of the region have highlighted it on the global platforms and have demanded an urgent international intervention. Activists said Pakistan was violating its own constitutional values by conducting a census exercise in the illegally occupied territories. During the ongoing 52nd session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, Jamil Maqsood, Central Secretary of Foreign Affairs Committee of the United Kashmir People's National Party, said that people across the region were opposing Pakistani designs for they posed both identity and demographic threats for the region.
People are opposing because they are afraid of diminishing their local identity and their demography. Because in this process, Pakistan wants to include all those Pakistani nationals and especially the people from Afghanistan who were living there temporarily without any local rights. Pakistan wants to include them into local population. They want to include them as local people, indigenous people of that region, also in Gilgit-Baltistan and also in the administration of POJK. So that's why people think that that will change their demography, and then after the changing of that demography, they will lose everything. They will lose in incumbent political representation, they will lose their incumbent jobs and many other things. So they are opposing, and all the legal fraternities, political parties, and mainly the United Kashmir People's National Party is challenging this policy at all constitutional and democratic forums, including United Nations Human Rights Council.
Several videos from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan have gone viral in recent days, where people were seen staging demonstrations against the Islamabad's decision. While Pakistan Bureau of Statistics claims that the 7th population and housing census will ensure transparency and wider acceptability of census results, people in the region say it will further tighten the noose around people of the occupied regions. Maqsood also said that Islamabad was brazenly perpetuating fake narratives at global platforms.
Pakistan is brazenly lying. They are whitewashing international opinion. They want to feed a very fake narrative, fake information, and everything fabricated. Practically, once things are done, then you cannot stop them. So we are in the process to stop them through all the mechanisms, political mechanisms, constitutional mechanism, and human rights mechanism.
Earlier, the civil society members in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir had demanded Pakistan Bureau of Statistics to register their data as citizens of their own region rather than Pakistan's. But Pakistan rejected their plea and employed coercive methods to register them as Pakistani citizens, breaching the United Nations resolutions. And while Islamabad's actions have triggered massive pushback both domestically and internationally, it remains to be seen what action does the UN takes against Pakistan to save the ethnic identities and demography of Gilgit-Baltistan and POK.
Moving on. One of the biggest chariot festivals, the 3-day-long Seto Machindranath Jatra, was recently celebrated in the Kathmandu Valley. Hundreds of women also came onto the streets to pull the chariot towards the main city square through a huge crowd of devotees. In the procession, a sky-scraping chariot of Seto Machindranath is pulled from place to place for 3 days. Have a look.
One of the largest chariot festivals held in the capital city of Kathmandu, Seto Machindranath saw the official commencement of its chariot parade as it rolled towards the central city plaza. With the fall of the day, hundreds of women came onto the street to pull the chariot through the mass of devotees. The 3-day-long Seto Machindranath Jatra, or the chariot procession honoring the god of rain, is also known as the Jana Bahadaya Jatra. A sky-scraping chariot of Seto Machindranath is pulled from Deendhara Patsala in front of the former royal palace and is towed around the city during these 3 days. Each day, when the chariot reaches its terminus, a group of soldiers fire their rifles into the air.
हाम्रो यो जात्रा चाहिँ 73 सालदेखि निरन्तर रूपमा चल्दै आइरहेको छ। अहिले चाहिँ महिला सहभागी चाहिँ स्वस्फूर्त यहाँ चाहिँ सहभागी हुन आइराख्नु भएको छ। त्यो माहौल चाहिँ यस्तै हो।
Seto Machindranath is regarded as the god of rain who brings on rain and good harvest. After celebrating this festival, it is believed that there would be plenty of rainfall and famine would stay at bay. There is also a belief that by participating in and witnessing the procession, illnesses would be cured, famine will be avoided, and prosperity will be brought.
यो अब सांस्कृतिक भनौँ या यो जात्रा पर्वमा चाहिँ हामी चाहिँ अघि सर्दै आइरहेका छौँ। जस्तै इन्द्र जात्रामा पनि हामी तान्दै आइरहेको 11 वर्ष पुरा भइसक्यो। यसरी नै सक्रिय भएर आइरहेका छौँ। त्यसै गरी अहिले यो जन्माद्य रथ जात्रा भनेर सेतो मचिन्द्रनाथको जात्रामा पनि यो रथ तान्नमा सक्रिय हुँदै आएको अहिले 4 वर्ष भयो हैन। 4 वर्षमा भन्दा नि यो वर्ष चाहिँ भव्यताका पूर्ण सम्पन्न हुन्छ भन्ने आशा लिएर हामी चाहिँ महिला भेला गरिकन महिलाहरूलाई एउटा प्रोत्साहन एउटा के भन्छ तालिम दिएर चाहिँ हामी आज अनुमानित अब भन्न त सकिँदैन पास वितरण चाहिँ हामीले 200 वटा पास वितरण गरेर।
As per the myth, during the regime of Yakshamala, the king of Kantipur, people used to bathe in a holy river and visit Swayambhunath, which was believed to possess the power of sending people to heaven after death. Once Yamraj, or god of death, came to know about the power of Swayambhunath, he visited the holy temple. At the time of his return from temple, Yama was captured by King Yakshamala and his guru, who possessed the powers and demanded immortality. As the king and his guru did not let Yama escape, he prayed to Arya Avalokiteshwar or Seto Machindranath to free him. God heard his prayers and immediately appeared out of the water. The god was white, with his eyes half closed. He told the king to build a temple where Kalmati and Bagmati met, and to organize a chariot procession so that God could visit the people and bless them with contentment and a long life. Since then, people have started to celebrate this 3-day-long procession to honor the god.
It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We'll be back next week at the same time. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on the behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.